Hello and welcome to DM Ultra finally. So this is the video gonna be only the base variants, or yeah, I mean it's not really a variant, the base version, without attachments. Then I'll show the most competitive attachments, and then I'll show the best looking attachments. And so this is what the 1911 looks: no attachments, no variants. And this is the Pellington. Oh, yeah, I got someone in the background, so oh, there he is. And so the best attachment setup that I would usually show is basically just the quickscoping, pretty much. So you would put the idle sway, the final barrel, tiger team. It's kind of just the best barrel out of everything, really. So I would usually put a 7 round because this does reduce the amount. Put an airborne elastic, and then I'll put the reader pad because I'm not really hip firing. And so yeah, that's the setup with that for most competitive. And for pistol, I would use the plus bullet velocity chrome line, the muzzle brake, the 12 round mag, and the airborne elastic so I can drop shot. And at this point, you would usually put a laser sight, but laser sights are GA'd, so if you're playing competitive, then you can't. And so this is what it will look like. And this is the 1911 with the attachments. Now we'll move on to the best looking attachments. And here is what it looks like with the best looking, in my opinion. I like the when the bipod's down, and so you get that grip right there. And these are attachments. I just put the sound moderator. The wrap just looks weird. The expended, I like the little grooves in it. The front grip, so I can get that bipod, and the front grip looks normal. And then I like the marathon stock because it just pulls it out or hollows it. That's the word. And then you got the dual pistols, of course. Only 2 attachments to barrel, so it gets that little extrusion. I don't like the look of suppressors on it, on pistols, and I don't like the look of extra, like, magazine sticking out. So yeah, this is what it looks like. And so let's move on. Okay, now we're moving on to the Tundra and the Magnums. As you can see, they actually have attachments on. I'm going to start with the best looking ones because I just realized trying to put attachments on, well, when you put them on, it doesn't actually show what it looks like. So I have to go into the main menu beforehand. So we'll just start with this one. So this is what it looks like, the best looking attachments in my opinion. Oh, minus the sticker. I don't know why the sticker's right there. And these are the Magnums. Best looking. And so the attachments is sound moderator, rapid fire barrel, front grip, 9 round, and the Raider pad. And with this, it's the chrome lined, no, or the dual wield, and the Vandal speed loader. Yeah. And so this is what it will look like with no attachments. And this is the Tundra. And this would have its best attachments, so you're basically saying the same thing. You just want the Tiger team, want the grip, not sight, honestly, personal preference on that one. You definitely need the airborne elastic, and you definitely need the rear pad. The other two is up to you. I usually prefer to have the speed so I could just get to rotations faster, because you want to get on that sniper position as fast as possible. Having an extra bullet or two doesn't really matter when you just switch to your pistol. Speaking of pistol, best pistol setup, competitively, before I got G8 for some reason. The Magnum is good and all, but it's not G8 worthy, let's be honest here. So you put the muzzle brake, you put the chrome line again, and then you put the 9 round, and then you put the airborne elastic. And so this is what it will look like. And this is the Magnum. Now on to the next one. Okay, and now we're on to the Diamatis. That what it looks like with the looks. And this is the M82, or the Barrett. Best looking. And so these are attachments. You just put the front grip so you can get the bipod again, and the tactical stock, because with the M82 it had some like white stuff on top. It's like some kind of tape. I didn't like that. The takedown, because it makes it the barrel a lot more jagged, and the dual wield, so because it's dual wield. And so this is what it looks like with no attachments. And these are the best attachments for the gun. Uh, it's basically the same thing for snipers every time. You put the stability, you get the Tiger Team, get the... In this case, you definitely want the bipod, because you want to be spamming it out, and so having the best amount of recoil is always the best. And since you're running the Tiger Team, you're going to be running a few bullets, so you definitely need this, and you want the airborne. You're not going to be sprinting with this. If you're sprinting with this, you're already dead, so might as well not even invest in the sprint pad. And with the Diamati, you want the muzzle brake, you want the chrome lid. It's basically the same for every pistol. Magazine to it and airborne elastic, so you can drop shot. And so yeah, this is what it looks like. Move on. So now we have the Hauer, or the pump shotgun. And the Stoner 63. Ha ha ha, funny name. And so these are your attachments to make it look good. You got the infancy compensator. Got the cut down barrel. So I don't really like the look of the barrel, so I just try to keep that as short as possible. And the 100 mount, because the 100 line looks good. And then for the Howard, you only have 2 attachments. You have the flash hide, and you have the task force barrel, because with this barrel specifically, it brings the camo out all the way, instead of just being at the base. And so these are what the guns look like with no attachments. And these are the ideal setups with this. The stoner is pretty accurate actually. So you have the muzzle brake. For pretty much every LMG you want the task force barrel. Task force barrel is just so good for LMGs. Uh, I say the speed tape honestly, because if you if field agent is pretty overkill. You can put that if they want, but I usually run speed. Airborne elastic, and you just have the radar pad. And there you go. There's your stoner. And for the shotgun, I'll use the normal. Where is it? What? The one that gives the oh yeah, the cone flash 90%. I'll have the plus damage range and fire rate. You'll have the 5 milliwatt because you actually use lasers in this one, and then you have the marathon stock, so I could just run into people. That or you run no stock, but yeah, I mean no stock. And then you have airborne elastic, so you could just drop shot. So this is what it would look like. And let's move on to the next one. Okay, so now we're on to the Gallo SA-12, or the Spaz-12. And the RPD. Notice this one has a sight. The iron sights look mismatched. The front end is white and the back end is black for some reason. It did not look good. So yeah. And notice how this magazine, there's two magazines. It's the one I'm rocking right now, and there's another one. I think the final one, 125. These both actually put the camo into the magazine, so they look really nice. You get the task force because it just looks nice. The flash guard because it looks nice. And as I mentioned before, the iron sights look absolutely atrocious, so I put a sight on. The best looking sight in my opinion is the Hacksmore. And the skeletal stock, you can't really see it.
Head for target location.
The normal stock just looks iffy. And so for the Spaz-12, all you need is the forged hammer, so as short barrel as possible, because the rest of the barrels look weird, and flash gun, because it looks good. And so these are what the attachments, or this is what the gun looks like without attachments. And these are the ideal setups. The RPD does have quite a bit compared to the other in terms of recoil, so you'll have the same setup again. But this time you definitely want the Spetsnaz instead of choosing between the two. You definitely want Spetsnaz. The iron sights, to me, are just unbearable, so I would actually run a... where is it? Oh, full stop. I don't think you actually have the 1.25s, but even if... Yeah, you don't. The only one you have is quick dot, which looks absolutely atrocious. So yeah, I'm running mill stop, but even if I did, the LMG, you're basically only long range. If you're challenging at short range, you're just gonna be out ADS'd. And so yeah. Oops. Wait, hold up. There you go. For the, you can't, you basically have to have these two. These two are crutch UI arrow. Okay, nice. And so yeah, and for ideal for shotgun is the same thing pretty much with the other one. Muzzle flash concealment. Your dot's basically just gonna disappear almost instantly. It's still gonna show up, so people intently looking at it are gonna see it, but 9 times out of 10 they're not even gonna know where you are. And then you have the plus effective range plus fire rate barrel. It's pretty much the best. The airborne elastic so you can drop shot, and the no stock. 5 mil. And so this is what it will look like. move on to the next one. This is gonna be the end of basically the, good attachment slash best attachments for the bottom, because the rest of them don't have attachments. So this is the Sigma 2. And this is the M60 with the best looking attachments. Long animation, wow. And this is what the attachments are: the SoCal Eliminator, the Final Barrel, the Vandal Speed Loader. Sadly, in this case, there's no magazine that actually makes the camo go over it, as of right now, and no stock. And so this is what it will look like without attachments. Let's do best attachments, which will be Muzzle Brake, Task Force. It's the same thing over and over again, huh? Field Agent, you definitely need it. This thing kicks a lot. And when I mean a lot, I mean a lot. And you have these two. Minus, forget about those other three. Those are cuz gunfighter. So this is what it will look like. And let's move on to the next one. This is the RPG. And this is the Type 63 with the best looking attachments, quote unquote. The only thing that changes is the muzzle. So yeah, that's literally the same, minus the muzzle. The muzzle is just your normal ones that look like the rest of the attack rifles. Now into best looking. So, or best effective, my bad. We just did best looking. So there's two ways. You can either keep the 38, so you actually, do more range. This barrel right here is kind of useless, so don't even bother. The one you want to be going for is either the effective range, or for some reason I thought there was a bullet velocity. It's a different gun. So yeah, basically effective range if you want to keep DMR style at super long range, but if you're trying to go CQB with it, then definitely the normal one. The plus damage doesn't really help at all, really. You could also go for the normal, just 8%, because you'll still keep at 50 meters, but I will say in my playing of actual competitive, most of the time, yeah, you're within that 50, but there's certain lines of sights that are usually around 60. So what you want to keep is generally 60 plus. As long as you keep 60 plus, you're good for every single range. So yeah, you could keep that, but in my opinion, I want to keep more close quarters. Besides, there's only one extra bullet, plus you're running at 422 rounds per minute, so I think it's worth it at that point. The muzzle, it doesn't matter, really. This thing's a beam. Now sights are really important for these DMRs. You can either run 2 times, but what I usually run is just the standard stop. For this, you want speed grip because this thing's a beam. You don't really need extra. Grew elastic. And what I usually run is you could either keep it like this if you're running DMR, or if you're running the way I do, you want to take out that muzzle brake and you want to replace it for the KGB pad. And so this is what it will look like. 4-ish. There you go. Took a minute. And let's move on. The knife. It's a knife. And the M16, best looking. And so these are the attachments to make it the best looking. You got the SOCOM Eliminator, the titanium barrel. I really wish the barrel was actually longer, like if I could use match grade, but that would take off the camo for some reason, so this does not look good. 45 round, it makes it a little bit longer, which I don't like, but at the same time it makes it black, which goes well with the DM Ultra instead of the, like, grayish, whatever it is. I don't even know what it is. And then SA Combat Stock, which I like the most. And so this is what it will look like with no attachments. So yeah, that's the grayish I was talking about. And the ideal setup for this would be muzzle brake. You could either go for the 2 times, like I said again, if you want really long range, but realistically, you're going for the stop 9 times out of 10. For this, at first I was recommending the fire rate, but after some, actual people that do analytics stuff, turns out these fire rate barrels are actually kind of useless. So basically, you're just running one barrel. There is no if and or buts about it. It's the match grade, the best barrel. And then for this, you want field agent just to be the most accurate as possible. Just get those tight burst in. Airborne elastic, and there you go. You could either take out the muzzle brake, which I do, or you can do the long range and keep it even more accurate with the muzzle brake. But in my case, I would use the radar pad, so this is what it will look like. On to the next. They're the China Lake, or in this game, it's called the M97. Or M79. Keep on mixing that up for some reason. Don't know why. And this is the AUG. Of course, you gotta put the suppressor on. You're basically running a sin if you're not running suppressor on this AUG. For looks, that is, competitively. Can't really use suppressor. And most of the time, you can't use this gun. So yeah, you have the silencer, you have the task force barrel, you have the field agent grip. All these grips look normal, but for this one, it actually has the camo on it, so it looks the best. And so this is what it will look like with no attachments on. I really wish the camo ran to the side, but whatever. And so the ideal setup with this is, I actually keep the 1.5 because I like it. You can go to a 1.3 or a 2 times, that is, but if you have a built-in sight into it, it's kind of just a waste of a attachment. Instead, you can use a muzzle brake and the field agent, because this one has a lot more recoil than the M16, so you definitely want to keep those barrels. And then for this one, you want the match grade again, same story there, airborne elastic and radar pad. And so this is what it will look like. Okay, now we're on to the ARs. Here is the XM4 best looking attachments. I'm pretty sure it's just one. Oh, it's 2. Oh, the takedown barrel as well. So yeah, this is what it looks like. And this is what it will look like with no attachments. slightly stubbier barrel and that chunky looking muzzle. And so these are the best attachments that I would usually run. I hate the iron sights on the XM4. It's just so zoomed into your face, you cannot see anything. So I run the micro reflex, mill stop. I run the extended because its range is 45. I know I was talking about how like 60 and stuff like that, but you have that minus sprinting movement speed, so it's like, oh, you're cutting it there. You're really cutting it there. So what I usually like to do is switch it between the two, but 9 times out of 10 I'm using the extended. Sometimes I even switch with the Ranger, because that's 715, which is nice, but you also have 1100, which is also very nice. Well, you also have the minus aim walking movement speed, so if I'm like on a map like Crossroads, I actually would pick the Ranger. So I would do that. And field agent grip, of course. You got the airborne elastic as well. And actually, I don't run a muzzle brake. I'm kidding. That's when I run muzzle brake when I'm running gunfighter. Sometimes with ARs, I do run gunfighter. Just depends. And then, of course, the reader pad. And so this is what it will look like. And on to the next one. Okay, and this is the AK-47 best looking attachments. So these are attachments. You just have the spent NAS compensator because it looks cool, and the RPK barrel because it got the little, I don't even know what that's called. Got that thing to the side. Yeah. And so this is what it will look like with no attachments. And so this is the ideal setup I run with this. I run the micro reflex again. No muzzle brake. I use the VDC reinforced because you really need it because that's 38. So the Spetnaz grip, the Greer elastic, and the KGB skeletal. Basically the same attachments that you always be seeing. Now this has probably the most recoil out of any other gun setup that you'll see competitively, because I don't really see people using the yet. So until then, this is probably the least accurate assault rifle, but it's still pretty easy to control. The best looking attachments for the Krig. Notice how there isn't none, because you literally put any attachment, it looks worse. I really wish if you put a sight on it, it would remove the iron sight, but it don't, so you just gotta deal with it on that part. And so this is the best attachments for this. You use the muzzle brake. The field agent grip, you want this as accurate as possible, so you're gonna have to take a dip on your bullet velocity, but it's 625, so it's pretty good. Not the best, but pretty good. You either run micro reflex. In this case, sometimes I would run the mill stop, but I prefer micro. Airborne elastic and raider stock. And so this is what it will look like. And on to the next one. For this one, the coverage is pretty lame. Other variants that you'll see when I do the variant videos actually cover to the end of the barrel, but even the top part with that is still non-existent, so you hate to see it.
Marking rally point.
So this is what the best looking attachments with the QBZ looks like. You got the SOCOM Illuminator, Task Force Barrel, and the QBZ pad. And so this is what it looks like with no attachments. It's kind of weird how the very back end has a different color from the middle area. I like that. And And so this is the ideal setup. Basically, this gun is like a Krieg 6. The initial few bullets are slightly harder to control, but the rest of them are generally easier to control than the Krieg 6. But the difference is this one has slightly more vertical with less horizontal versus the Krieg 6 having less vertical but a slightly more horizontal. But the main difference between the two is that this one kills a lot faster because it has a faster fire rate, but in exchange it does slightly less damage. Um, but the QBZ has a higher time to kill, so I prefer the QBZ over the Krieg 6, and I still don't understand why people are using the Krieg 6. Same way how people are using the Krieg 6 over the AK-47, because the AK-47 is kind of busted. So yeah, basically you're running the same setup as you would with the Krieg 6. So, these attachments. And this, actually, in some cases, you could actually just run iron sights, because the iron sights in this would look pretty good. I haven't really tried it, because I'm not used to, running iron sights, but if this is your main gun, you could easily get used to the iron sights, and you don't have to waste an attachment on a sight, so, yeah. So instead, you could just run this. So, instead of having 45, you can basically have the fastest fire rate, or bullet velocity out of any of them, because they're not usually running the bullet velocity barrel. And you can have a range of 91 meters, which is absurd. And so this is what it will look like. This thing will ensure you that you are beaming very hard. And this is me without controlling it, right there. Look how much of a beam that is. Crazy. And let's move on to the next one. You already know what it is. The best looking. The classic MP5. Look at that. Subsonic suppressor. So this is what it looks like. Best looking attachments. So I have the Ranger barrel, the sound suppressor. Yeah, I said that right. And the collapsible stock. Pop! MP stock flap. And so this is what it looks like with no attachments. And this is the ideal setup. Would be the, well, it's a little GA'd, but you would either run Task Force or you would run, not Ranger, Extended. I've seen some people actually use Reinforced Heavy, but apparently it's broken. It does more headshot damage. Whatever. There's a lot of superstition. So that's what I'd usually run, so I can get that little bit extra range. The Muzzle Brake, of course. You'll have the Speed Grip, because you're an SMG player. You gotta get to your rotates faster. You got the Airborne Elastic, and you got the Reader Stock. And so this is what it will look like. On to the next one. So this is the Milano Attachment. It's just the muzzle at the end. What it would look like without it. And so the ideal setup with this would be this gun's pretty much a laser, so you don't really need the muzzle. I just keep with the speed grip and the muzzle though, just so I can, be extra. It has a range of 15 meters, which is pretty nice. You can range that to 17, but I don't feel that's really necessary because you're minusing the sprinting movement speed. So I just want to be as fast as possible. So I just keep it at the bullet velocity one. I'll have the Airborne Elastic and I'll have the Raider Stock. So this is what it will look like. Your boy be zooming. move on to the next one. Double suppressors looking so good on SMGs, I don't know. But here's one right there. This is the AK-74U. The best looking attachments. Also a cleaner iron sight, might I say. So, you have the GRU suppressor. Either suppressor works, it doesn't really matter. And the extended barrel. It works with a few barrels, but I like the look of the extended one with it. And I have the skeletal stock because it just, the back end looks better. Can't really see it. And so this is what it will look like with no attachments. And this is the best, oh, whoops. Okay, nice. And this is the best looking, or best competitive attachments. So you have the muzzle brake, you have the, I've seen some people use the extended, I prefer the liberator, so I just have extra bullet velocity. So, yeah. VDC reinforced and task force for this barrel, or G8 for some reason, but I would, even with this. The slight improve from 8 meters to 7 meters, doesn't really matter. If it was 10 to 11, then yeah, but... And Task Force is just straight up G8. But if it wasn't, I didn't really like it because the extra... just has too much recoil with it if you do that. The spent speed grip, so I could just get to places, zoom in, through elastic and skeletal stock. And so this is what it will look like. Move on to the next one. On to the KSP best looking attachments. So these are attachments that look the best with it, the sound suppression and the duster stock. That's literally it. And so this is what it will look like with no attachments. And this is the ideal setup. So, you know, burst weapon, so you basically just want it. The range itself, you want to raise it up. So, Task Force actually works pretty well with this because you have the plus 50% range and plus 75% bullet velocity, instead of just going from 17 meters to go to 22, which is very nice. And going from 50 to 53 doesn't sound like much, but it just makes it more consistent because for some reason there's invisible walls in this game. I'm just saying it now. There's invisible walls in this game. I don't care what fantasy world you want to live into. There's a lot of hit detection problems. That's just online. So with this, it's more consistent. And you're running an SMG, so you don't really have to worry too much. But this gun itself is G8, so you don't have to worry about the barrel because you're not using this until you're using it for, you know, non-GA purposes. And this one I actually would keep the field agent because, you know, you're running this, so you need that extra a little bit. And airborne elastic and raider stock, just like the rest. So this is what it will look like. Oh, actually, I lied about that last part. I usually run no stocks because this one gives 30 instead of 15. You do want to hip fire this. This gun's pretty good. And plus, you don't really need a move like this because you're dead. And if they're not dead, you're dead. And so yeah, let's move on to the next one. The Bullfrog, best looking attachments. And so these are attachments. You have the muzzle brake, you have the liberator barrel, so instead of having that little, well, depending on the barrel, it's like black or gray. Instead, it becomes one with the camo, and then 85, because the 85 looks cool. What it looks like with no attachments. You'll see in a second what I'm talking about. Yeah, it has that little black bar for some reason. It does not look good. And so this is the ideal setup. You have the muzzle brake, you have the V&D reinforced, you have the speed grip, and you just want to mow down, basically. You just hose them down. So this is what it will look like. Got 50 bullets, you gotta use the flag. AKA just spray it. Make sure they don't peek the corner again. Oh, going back. Yeah, you won't peek the next one. Unless you're walking into 30 bullets. So on to the next one. Done. DMR 14. This is what it looks like, the best looking. Well, I didn't mean to do that. So what it is just two attachments, the agency suppressor and the hangman. Having an EBR that doesn't have a scope on it just seems weird to me. So this will look like with no attachments. Doesn't look right to me. Whose idea was to give this gun a 20 round mag? Certainly felt it. Which is why I left this one for last, because there's two setups that I wanted to talk about. The Warzone setup, which is the main that everyone is doing, and then this setup, which is the competitive one. So you have that, you got the mill stop, you got the, I gotta make sure I put the right one on, normal rapid fire, so you have the 50 meters, or it's the same thing with the other DMR that I showed, the Type 63, it's the same thing. But in this case, I would run this one because it already has a faster fire rate. Field agent grip, and airborne elastic. And if you're running slightly more CQB, then take off the muzzle, and you have the Raider stock. And so this is what it will look like. And then finally, you guys by now would probably already know, the Warzone setup. So most people either run the 3 times, the 2 times, but they don't really like this one because for some reason it's hard to zoom in. I never understood that. The multi-zoom scopes are just good. And plus you don't actually get any recoil bonuses for the sights, unlike the Modern Warfare ones. So it doesn't really matter too much which you have. So you have that. You have, of course, the agency suppressor. This one, it minus bullet velocity. In Warzone, it actually increases range. Don't ask me why. For this one, it's apparently glitched out, so the titanium doesn't actually remove range. So you run that one. You got the field agent, of course, because you got the accuracy. You got the serpent, because for some reason this still gives you drop shotting. So literally just made this one inferior. And you have, that's it, actually. Because I forget, you don't run stocks in Warzone. And so this is what it will look like. So imagine getting 3 shot from this gun across the map. Yep. That made sense. Like they don't test these guns. So yeah, that's all of them. That took about like an hour of my life, so hope you enjoyed. And next one should be the weapon variant, so that shouldn't take too long, hopefully. So yeah, that's it.